before my 8 o'clock, and so I won't be able to stay for the whole thing because I have to do some very fun data work. Everybody loves auditing data. It's everybody's idea of a fun way to spend the night. But yeah, this works, and I'm happy to help.
Okay. Well,
I've never used this platform before.
The audio is live, guys, so just mute your mics.
I won't be able to stay. Everybody loves auditing data. It's everybody's idea.
Alex, did you share it already? I'm looking for your name.
I'm sorry, what did you ask me to share?
Not you, I'm sorry. I was seeing if Douglas shared it on his Facebook yet.
Yes, just shared it. I'm about to do a watch party.
Okay, I'll wait for the watch party. Oh, you did already, okay. Okay. Okay.
All right, Walter, we're ready. Good evening, Riviera Beach. This is Councilman Douglas Lawson. I am honored to bring to you guys mental health in the minority community. We are going to be showcasing some amazing individuals here. As you guys know, I'm here with the wonderful young lady, Miss Issa Allen of Mind Over You. I'm going to allow for her to do an introduction of our special guest. And we have a few surprises tonight. We're going to talk about mental health in the minority community, especially during this election season.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this again. And I'm so excited to start our mental health forums in the community once again. I feel like we were doing such great strides when we started before COVID and getting so many people involved and educating everyone about mental health and trying to break the stigmas of mental health. So I'm so happy to be back and starting this again, especially with this new, or not new, especially with everything that's going on and the election coming up. I'm happy that we're having this kind of segment, especially geared towards the election, because there's a lot of anxiety and fears and the unknown of what's going to happen. And a lot of people are just having that fear and anxiety of not knowing what to do or what to expect, so to speak. So once again, I'm so happy that we're starting this again and starting with this new election coming up very shortly. And I'm going to invite my first guest, Mr. Alex Barrera.
Arios, it's fine.
Arios.
Arios.
Real quick story, guys. Mr. Barrios, I had the pleasure of meeting him at an event that we did in January, and we said that we would spend a lot of time communicating and seeing each other over the next, couple months. And of course, COVID hit, so this is my first time seeing him again. So thank you, Mr. Barrios, for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Councilman Lawson. Thank you for having me. Essa, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here again. Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Barrios, and I'm here tonight to talk a bit about the power of voting, how easy voting is to do, and why we should all be doing it. I previously worked for the Florida Democratic Party and have organized for years in Palm Beach County and the Treasure Coast. I recently left the Joe Biden presidential campaign to become field director for Hard Knock Strategies. Currently have over 500 field staff and operate in 6 major counties. Organizing is what I do. Organize who? Organize us. People like you, people like me, to make sure we have the people in office that we need to see in office. People like Councilman Lawson, people like State Senator Bobby Powell, people like that will represent us and speak with our voice and fight for our interests, right? And they can't do it alone. So we need to tell our friends and family and everybody we come across to go vote. Now, aside from great representation, what's in it for us, right? Well, how many of you feel like you make too much money? Raise your hand if you think you make too much money.
I don't think
I can't see anybody, but I doubt anybody's hands are going up. My hand's not going up. I don't make enough money. And one of the ways that we could change that is with our vote. Specifically on voting for voting on amendments. Most people don't know about amendments, what amendments are, and amendments are usually further down in the ballot. So it's really important to vote all the way down the ballot because that's where we find the amendments. That's where we'll find our city councilmen. That's where we find important local seats that we need to vote for. Now this year on the ballot, we have Amendment 2. Now what's Amendment 2? Amendment 2 would increase Florida's minimum wage from $8.56 to $15 an hour. Now that'll happen gradually every year until it gets to $15 in 2026. But the last time Florida voted on a minimum wage ballot measure was in 2004, 16 years ago. We cannot let this opportunity pass us by, and we need everybody to go vote. It's incredibly important. If you're a registered voter, you can go do it tomorrow. There are 18 early voting locations that are open from 7 a.m. 7 p.m. All you need is a picture ID. And that could be anything. That could be your driver's license. That could be a student ID. That could be a credit card that has your picture on it. They take a lot of forms of ID. All you need is a picture ID. They have hand sanitizer, single-use pens. Everybody is social distance. The whole process is COVID safe. I voted early on Sunday. I think it was Sunday in Green Acres, and it took me 15 minutes. It was so easy. Okay. So easy. And you can even check the wait times at early vote locations. You can go to pbcelections.org, and you can see all of the early vote locations. You can see the wait times for each early vote locations, and you can plan how you're going to do it. It couldn't be easier. This year couldn't be easier to vote, and it couldn't be more important for us to vote. We have record-breaking unemployment. We have record-breaking inequality. I mean, we're breaking all of the wrong records out here. So let's have record-breaking turnout. And that's a record we can be proud to break. I want to thank all of you for listening to my TED Talk. Thank you all for voting. Thank you for having me tonight, Councilman Lawson, Essa. Thank you all for having me.
No problem. Before you leave, I just want to make sure we got clear with it's pbc.earlyvote.com.
It's pbcelections.org. It's pbcelections.org. And now if you go to the website, it's just pbcelections.org, you're going to see a tab that says early vote. And it's real big right in the middle. It's got like what looks like a calendar icon on it. And if you just click on the little button and scroll down, you'll see a map of Florida, and it's mostly along the coast, and you'll see all of the locations listed off to the left. You can then roll down, and you'll be able to see the lines. If you roll down a little bit further, you'll see the wait time and the name of the location, and the little pin, just like on Google Maps. It'll change colors depending on the wait time, and usually they're green because it's pretty efficient.
Okay.
It's pretty effective.
Okay, perfect.
And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And I just want to remind all our viewers, this is not a encouragement to tell you who to vote for. This is an encouragement to let you know that this is the best time to exercise your right. You have a constitutional right to vote, and you have earned this right as a citizen of this great America, as an individual that wants to lead this country forward and be a part of the impact of this country. Just get out and vote. Exercise that right. So we will not dictate or determine, as the city of Rivera Beach is nonpartisan, non-biased. We support the voting process. We encourage people to exercise their right, because I was elected to office because I was actually voted in by the people, by a majority in my city. Now, each individual that has served in this great city, in this great county, in this great state, and that's going for this presidential election, these are candidates that you have the right to choose. So please get out and exercise that right to vote. And Mr. Barros, you are amazing as always. Thank you so much for the information today, because this is what our community needs to hear on a constant basis, and why we want you to all drag somebody with you to the polling station.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman. The Councilman's absolutely right. It's about being part of the process. And so long as we're part of the process, we're able to have our voices heard, and we're making those choices, and other people aren't making those choices for us. It's very important.
Correct. Thank you so much. And talking about that process of just voting and that the exercise your right to vote is one of the topics that I do talk about in trying to deal with coping skills for anxiety and fearful for this election, is to have control over the things that you have, be thoughtful of the things that you have control over, and the things that you don't have control over, to kind of not let that stress you out and not overthink that and let it get you to where it's overwhelming in your brain. And one of the things that you do have control over is to vote. So it ties in perfectly with what you're saying, just to go out and vote. And that is your exercise to right. And that is your contribution, so to speak, and your voice. So just knowing that is just part of the process of you doing your part. And, whatever the elections come out, whatever the results come out, you do not have control over that, So, do we want me to just start, or we're going to wait for?
Oh, well, no, go ahead, please. I'm sure we'll have some of our guests will be joining in while we're talking. And if you have any questions in regards to just the process and what's been happening, and also we have a great guest right now, Mr. Barros. If we have any questions for him that we may want him to address, that's good too.
Okay, well, you talked about, Mr. Barros, earlier that, not only just vote, and how important it is to kind of go down the line and vote for the people that are in your local statute, so to speak, and how important that is, because they kind of make more of an impact and difference in your own community than what the, first two would do in your community. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So, it's easy to get caught up in the energy and the excitement of really big elections, a presidential election, a senatorial election, these big national elections, and those will affect national policy. When you go further down the ballot, you start to get into constitutional officers, who your sheriff's going to be, who your city councilman's going to be, who your supervisor of elections going to be. These are the offices that are going to affect your everyday life. We see the amendments that are on the ballot. Those are amendments that will affect your everyday life. It's really important to vote down the ballot, because those are the people that are going to pass the measures that will have how many playgrounds are in your community, or whether your kid goes to a safe school, or what kind of funding we have for mental health programs and safety programs in our communities.
And that's every 2 years, correct?
I'm sorry?
And that's every 2 years, not every 4 or?
So actually, we have voting every year. We have the big elections every couple of years. Yeah, so after this election, usually but every single year there are elections. We'll have the municipal and local elections, which are incredibly important, and those happen in March.
Okay. Now let me ask you, have you experienced anyone who is kind of dealing with any fears or anxiety or anything that you've dealt with in the process of what you're doing right now?
Oh, absolutely. It's honestly, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Previously, I think, I'd spoken previously. Prior to working in politics, I worked in boxing. And I worked in boxing for about 20 years. And like I said, this is emotionally and mentally so much tougher to deal with as work, because it's so meaningful to people. It means so much to them, and it has such an impact on their lives. You get to hear their story. I was in the door of a voter who, there was actually 4 of them. 4 voters in this home, and I went into this home, and I must have spent 45 minutes in there with these people, listening to them about their thoughts and their hopes for the future, what matters to them. They had a daughter that was in the criminal justice system. I mean, look, we all come from the community, and if we haven't ourselves been impacted by the criminal justice system, we know somebody that has. People pin their hopes on our elected officials making a difference in our lives. The anxiety is incredibly high. The landscape is very polarized right now. It's a tough subject. Politics is a very, very tough subject for people to talk about. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in general in what we see going on in the world. We're now so connected through social media and the internet. It's made the world such a small place. We have access to so much information. So there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of need.
Well, talking about the anxiety and the fear that's going on, it's very important now for people to understand the great need to have that kind of self-care for yourself. I think that when we talk about self-care, everyone just like, oh, I'll get to me when I can. We got X, Y, and Z to deal with, so it's no time to get to me, But if you don't take care of you and your mental state, at one point, your body will actually force you to kind of shut down and stop,
Guilty. Yes, I know. I can tell you. I can absolutely tell you. This actually happened to me 2 days ago. You don't take care of yourself, and it wasn't like a mental breakdown, but it was just so much. My body was so worn down. I thought I had COVID, and I went and got a rapid test, and thank God I was negative. But my body was so worn down. I had headaches, and I felt feverish, and I had chills. I didn't want to eat. It was just terrible. From working 7 days a week, 15-hour days, and not taking care of myself.
And a lot of people don't understand how stress can be such a silent killer, and if you don't have stress management techniques, because we're going to deal with stress in life, period, and there is good stress and bad stress. However, if we don't know how to kind of de-stress throughout our day or even throughout the week, then it's like you said, it's going to pile up on you, and it's going to hit you, and you don't even know what's wrong with you. And you're going to feel sick. You're going to have the effects of feeling like you are sick, and you're going to break down. So that's one thing that I do encourage everyone to kind of just look into themselves and understanding what it is that what's your oasis, so to speak. What can you vent to? Who can you vent to kind of just let that out and not harbor anything inside? Because when we harbor things inside, it kind of just stays in our subconscious, right? And then it seeps out at the wrong time when we don't need it to. And it comes out in the form of anxiety. And fear is kind of side and side with anxiety. Anxiety comes from fearful of whatever it is that we're thinking about or we don't want to happen again. You know what I'm saying? So that self-care factor, it just kind of alleviates all the pressure and the stress that we're dealing with so that we can kind of recharge and rejuvenate to start fresh for the next day. Well, I'm glad that your test was negative,
Thank you. Me too.
Did you like kind of de-stress and have some kind of self-care for yourself to kind of step away for a little bit and then come back?
In all honesty, I need to, and in all honesty, it's part of a cycle that I've just been dealing with over the past couple of years, where it's not unexpected. Although because of COVID, it was different for me this time, and after having gone through, because that created so much more fear, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm afraid now that I'm COVID positive, that my son might get it, that other people I might have been with recently, because I'm on the ground now. There's always that fear for me, and then the responsibility that if I might have spread that to somebody else, and so that created so much more anxiety for me. And it definitely was an eye-opening moment for me that I need to take a moment, take a breath, and understand that the world is not only on my shoulders, and that it'll be okay for me to take an hour, 45 minutes, something. Just set that aside to just calm down, even if I only took a nap. Even if it was only a nap, whatever it might be, to try to find something to do for myself. I actually, I do enjoy reading quite a bit. And so I did pick that back up. So I'm taking and then you can do it on your phone, right? There's so many different ways for us to find time. And so I take 15 minutes out and read just right there on my phone and just kind of get away from the world. Because it's going to be there waiting for us anyway. When I get done with what I'm reading, the world's gonna be right there waiting on me.
And it's so much, and it's like we're dealing with so much now on top of everything else that has transpired in 2020. You know, and it's with the COVID and like the financial crisis and employment and working, and your child probably doing homeschooling. Now on top of that, you're having to deal with who's going to be the, you know, our leader of the country, and that's a lot to take on for anybody. You know, so I really encourage the self-care to kind of minimize what you feed your brain as well, as far as how glued you are to the TV. You know, you need that break sometimes to just kind of detach from what's going on in the world and detaching the media aspect of it, and just kind of, like I said, regrouping, you know, and that factor of, if you can't control something, just keep that in mind, not to overdwell on it, because the more you overdwell, you're going to overthink, and overthinking just causes a whole bunch of other chaos. And then you create scenarios in your mind, and then it's like that's what causes the anxiety and the fears, you know. And sometimes the scenarios you created does not even happen, but you've already created this in your mind. So it's like you have this own party going on in your mind that everyone's, you know, the fear factor, so to speak. So I definitely just continue to encourage the self-care.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I have a question, Ms. Issa, that was actually posed by one of the online individuals. The media and the impact that it has on your mental health and wellness, the fact that we're constantly getting bombarded with who to vote for, what to vote for, the text messages, the phone calls, the interest in, you know, just trying to make the right decision for a candidate. What effects and things can we do to kind of alleviate some of that high pressure and stress that everybody's putting on you? Because I understand the campaigning aspect. I understand the interest of trying to get that name recognition so that when you get to the polling stations, you remember that slogan, you remember that hashtag. But how can we address some of those things?
so one thing, I think I was just talking about that, is just to monitor your time on media, on social media, or on top of the TV. Monitoring, because social media can get very addicting, and it seeps in and we don't even know that we're addicted to it. And every minute we're just on it, on that topic, and just kind of dwelling in that. And we don't give our brain that kind of pause and break that it needs to kind of regroup. So definitely taking time from social media is key, and understanding how addicting it can be, right? The self-care thing that I overstate it sometimes, but it is true that you need to get outside, take a walk, to go exercise, do whatever it is that makes you feel like you are kind of zenning yourself to where you're getting more of yourself back together and who you are initially. Definitely look into, like, again, if you can't control what the outcomes are, you only can control your vote. Your vote is your voice. So have some pride in saying that I did vote. This is what people fought for me. I'm voting. This is my piece of the world, so to speak. You cannot control what anybody else thinks, what everybody else feels. You know, would it be in a perfect world if everyone can respect each other, but we don't, you know? And it's just so much controversial and so much aggression that the country's so divided right now, that I think more now than anything is to kind of get your house in order first and foremost, you know, and just making sure everything is okay at home. And so that when we do go outside into the world, that we are kind of have that armor of, you know, we're okay, you know, and just having that foundation, so to speak, and just understanding who we are, you know.
Right. Ms. Nicole Thomas with Blessed Touch said that what she'll do besides a massage is take a walk, watch the sunset, listen to the birds, and just sit for a moment and try to refocus. So that's something that she just wrote online. Very
good. It's very important. And walking, and when we do exercise and we don't even know it, even 30 minutes a day, it produces endorphins in our body, and it's called the happy hormone. So when we're stressed out throughout the day and we take that walk, it's actually kind of it's a de-stressor. So a lot of people say, you know, we use it as a tool for losing weight, but it's also a de-stressor, and it actually helps us chemically to kind of balance out our hormones, because when we're too stressed out, we produce cortisol hormone. Now, when we have too much cortisol hormones, it's something that our brain is not functioned to happen all the time. So that's why it's important to de-stress throughout your day, or do that self-care like the person was just saying, and what they do, because that helps them kind of regroup so that they can get back into the regular lifestyle of whatever it is that they have to deal with. Because we all have to deal with so many issues throughout the day. You know, I was going to commend you, Alex, for saying that, you know, being a male, and because a lot of males don't talk about self-care because they think like it's a female or a woman's thing. But, you know, I cannot just commend the male, because females, we have it so much harder too, especially when you're a mom and you're working and you have so much other things. And then, you know, males on the same time portion, they have where they have to be this provider for their family and they have to make it work, and their mind is just so tunnel vision on, you know, financially, and we all deal with stress, you know, and just learning how to cope with it is the main key. And finding whatever works for you, because maybe walking doesn't work for someone else, but like she said, you know, sitting outside for 10 minutes watching the sunset. The water is my thing. I love to go on the beach by the water. I love to walk by the water. It just does something to me, but that is my thing, you know. So you have to figure out what is it that works for you, because everyone is different. Everyone has their own, whatever it is that makes them feel good, whatever it's playing pool or just playing basketball or, you know, who knows, just finding out what it is for you and having that kind of written down, or like you said, Alex, reading is good for you. You know, for me, reading will just put me to sleep. So it's like everyone's different, you know? So it's just important to finding out who you are, you know, identifying who you are, what are your likes and dislikes. And when you get stressed out, having a list of tools to say, hey, you know what, today I'm going to try this. Or today I'm going to go take a bubble bath with candle lit and, you know, a glass of wine or a glass, whatever it may be. But if that's something that is going to, if you feel a tad bit better after, you're doing something right, you know? So that's what I would say.
Good stuff. Our next guest, you can continue, Ms. Issa, but our next guest will be coming on at about 7:35, between 7:35 and 7:40. So
Okay.
You can go into your next set of topics. So it gives you about 5 to 10 minutes to continue.
Okay. Mr. Alex, since we still have you here, I was going to ask when you say you go into the homes, any other topics that they bring up as far as like maybe when the election, let's say today's election day and tomorrow, the person that you did not vote for won, let's say. What are the expectations or fears that maybe people have then, especially with possible rioting, possible looting, protesting? Do you have any of those things that comes up?
Yeah. So I would like to also just say that if everyone was, we don't normally go into people's homes. That's something that I did. I was compelled to by that moment because there was just so much. There was so much pain in the woman's, in her voice, just talking to her. And she asked me to come in, and I had to accept. But it's not something that I do have my staff do. We just, as a safety precaution, we don't enter people's homes. But to your question, it's tough, right? I've definitely I've heard people all across the spectrum, right? I'm going to move to another country. I'm going to move to the moon. You know, I don't have a moon base, so I'm gonna have to be right here in Florida. Florida's my home, and Palm Beach County is my home, and so I want my community to be good and healthy, and we need to take care of each other. People get very emotionally and mentally invested in politics, the ones that do, and so the world will not end on November 4th. No matter the result on November 3rd, the world will not end. And what you said was very eye-opening as well, that we create that anxiety for ourselves by creating scenarios that play out in our minds that may not materialize, but they manifest in our daily life and how we feel throughout the day and how we carry stress and how we cope. There's definitely not, the world's not going to end, as I said, on November 4th. Do elections matter? Absolutely. Does it matter to have your voice heard? Absolutely that it does. But the world will go on, and we will continue to live with each other. We'll continue to work together. We, at the end of the day, we all, no matter our political party, we have the same, we're still people, right? The same, we have those same core elements. We want to be healthy. We want to be able to provide for our families. We want our children to be safe and get good educations. These are things that we all share. And that is not determined by your party affiliation or what candidate that you support. And so if we can remember that we have that in common with each other and let that bring us together as opposed to our political opinions separate us, I think that can move us towards a better direction, possibly with, carrying a little bit less stress and understanding that no matter what the electoral result is in any given election, we shouldn't hold a grudge against somebody, that we saw them holding a sign or wearing a shirt that we didn't like or it wasn't for our candidate. Like learning to accept, finding acceptance in that would probably go a long way towards helping people's mental state.
I agree. Accept and respect as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that's key I think that because of the division, everyone kind of just like sided with whomever you wanted to side with, and that respect factor is gone as human beings, and, it's just sad to say that that's the world we're living in now, but it is what it is at this point, and it's just a matter of everyone kind of realizing how to get back on a better track, and again, that's why it's important to vote, so you can get that kind of alignment. You're never going to agree always, but it's to agree to disagree, so to speak, sometimes, and not just have that hostile aggression to where people just feel like, one's entitled or one's better than, or whatever it may be. That's not what America is about. So I'm not even sure, but that's here nor there. And, the whole point is to kind of just get everybody on that mental state to where we can cope with ourselves first, and cope with, whatever we're dealing with. Because I saw a research somewhere that says that, so as clinicians, we can group categorize everything. So now we have something that's called an election stress disorder. So elections is the anxiety disorder. And it's almost as if every election that comes up, everyone gets this fear or anxiety in them as to, like, if the person that they don't vote for wins, what's going to happen. But like you said it best, the world's not going to end, and we've went through how many elections so far. It's just a matter of, that person who is the leader of our country and being a leader, so to speak. So whatever it's sad that we're here, as far as being 62% of having that stress disorder in this country, because it shouldn't be something that's so fearful. And the process shouldn't be where you're afraid or you get to the point to where I don't even want to vote for anybody, so I won't vote, because that attitude is not an attitude for something that's going to kind of benefit anyone at any point, so it's definitely key though.
Excellent. I just had a great question, again, from Ms. Nicole Thomas. She's tuned in, and she asked, how can we avoid relationships being destroyed by political affiliations or strong opinions of people that we know, since there's a struggle constantly that they're hearing? Really just kind of dealing with and coping with those relationships, that somebody that has such a strong political opinion. How do you deal with those relationships? How do you avoid those? What do you need to do for your wellness, your mental wellness?
So I think a lot goes back to kind of agreeing to disagreeing with someone else. Everyone has their own perception of things. So, we all three of us are here right now. We all grew up differently. We all came from different backgrounds. So we all went through different things, whether it be an okay life or a traumatized life. So our perception on things are going to be different. So when you come into contact with someone who opposes what you think or what you feel or your future's supposed to look like, and it's opposing what their future is supposed to look like, it's a matter of just kind of respecting their opinions and just agreeing to disagreeing. Now, it depends on the relationship factor, if this person is in your household or whether this person is just on your job. Being in a household is something to sit back and talk more, just talking about it and explaining your whys, not just kind of saying your answer and then that's it. You have to have a reasoning as to why you feel this way, because sometimes you can even talk to someone who's opposing you. You make a lot more sense than what their whys are, and they will actually like, oh, you know what, you're right. So it's a matter of just kind of discussing everything and just kind of just having that respect. And if you're strongly agreeing to what you believe and you don't want to hear what they're saying, just kind of ease out with, okay, that's your opinion and I respect that, and just agree to disagree.
Excellent. Great answer. So like I did say, that we would have a special guest coming on. We have the gentleman that we have truly and duly elected to serve this great community. And this classmate of mine from middle school days has literally exceeded and abundantly shown why he is the man that we need to serve our great Senate. I have the honor to actually introduce the great Senator Bobby Powell of the state of Florida. And Senator Powell, you want to come on the camera for us?
Can you see me?
Not yet.
All right, we're going to be doing this now. View webcams all. I don't know if that's working. All. I'm still learning. So can you see me yet?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Share my webcam.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I'm new to WebEx, obviously.
There we go. And
but it's good to
this
see
gentleman
everybody.
is online at all times. So the Florida Senator, District 30, Bobby Powell Jr., our senator. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir.
Hey, Councilman Lawson, I really, really appreciate you having me on. I want to thank you for all the things that you're doing in the community, staying very, very busy. There's a point in time where, I was one of the standard bearers that was making a lot of waves, moving and shaking, making sure that people who were in elected office were doing the three things that you do to show leadership: transparency, being visible, and also being empathetic to the needs of the people who we serve. And by doing so, the job that you're doing, it also spreads it. It makes it a little bit easier for the rest of us so that we can all do different events in the community. My little brother used to say that you can't be what you cannot see. So thank you for being visible. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. Thank you for your continued efforts. So I really, really appreciate that. And it's good to see y'all, Alex. Good to see you. And I'm glad to be on with you all this evening.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Senator. Ms. Allen, we are going to lead in and allow for you to get right into the questions and thoughts that you had for the great senator and any feedback that you'd like for him to give as well.
Okay, so Senator Powell, I'm going to start off by kind of asking you the same questions I just asked Mr. Alex. And do you kind of see any fears or anxiety in people with this voting process and the election in this year, and what so are they?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. There's a lot of anxiety that people are feeling right as we get closer to the election. Many of us, including myself, are very anxious. Every day I get more and more anxious about this election. However, when I have people who call in my office, I just had someone call my office a few minutes ago, right before I left the office, around 6:45, concerning, and now mindful, he probably didn't expect anyone to pick up, but his question was, he turned in his ballot. He's been looking online to see if it's been counted, and it has been received. So my information to him was, if it's been received, I believe if it turned either blue or green, that means it will be counted. You're okay. If it's red, that means that they have not accepted it. He wanted to go into a little bit more detail about that. And I said, well, here's the thing. I am not the supervisor of elections office, so I cannot give you that much information. If you call my office tomorrow, staff will be here to walk you through the process and maybe call the supervisor's office for you. But tonight, there's nothing I can do to help you. But this guy's anxious. People need to be heard. People are concerned with what's going on with this election. And right now, I've never seen it this contentious. There are so many people who are concerned. So many people, so much negativity, so much anxiety surrounding the election. And what I've been able to do is I've increased the amount of time that I'm doing cardiovascular workouts. I'm getting ready to start lifting weights again. But we've got to figure out ways to escape this constant, and it's 24/7. This is the first time I've told people, this is the first time that the president of the United States has literally been on television every single day for the last 4 years. And for some people, that might be good if that person wants to be a marketer in chief. But for others, it is extremely depressing. It causes anxiety, and it puts us all, it creates a lot of tension.
Yeah. Have you experienced anything yourself as far as being fearful or anxiety or any type of depression due to the election and everything that's going on?
I've had some escapes. I've dealt more frequently. I've had my my wife and daughter that I've leaned a little bit more. We spent more family time together. But like everybody else, I'm concerned. Yes, I haven't been depressed, but I have been extremely nervous, extremely worried because I'm a member of the Florida Senate. We don't have a majority. And I've witnessed people who, like Desmond Meade, who has fought so that people will have their right to vote. And this gentleman went to law school, graduated from law school, cannot sit for the bar. And you've got people who are elected, who are stewards of the state, who are elected to serve. And they looked at this gentleman and said, you have not done enough to be able to have all of your rights restored. And for me, those types of things are extremely bothersome because now I'm also dealing with people in the community who say, well, my vote doesn't matter. My vote won't count. Well, I'm here in Florida where the state government, the state governor has spent $260,000 of taxpayer money to fight against people who are ex-felons having their right to vote restored. I'm sitting in the state of Florida where people have died over and over again from coronavirus. Many people in the community who I know, Wassy Jakes, Linda LeBlanc, Tyrone from my church, James Henry Hall. I know people who've continued to die from coronavirus. And I'm extremely disappointed in the answers that we've been getting, the precautions that have not been taken, and just the amount of people who are taking things who are not taking things seriously. So I also lean in on some of my other elected officials. It's good that Councilman Lawson is doing this and helping people to understand what's going on, because if I'm going through some of these feelings, I know that people who are just regular people are dealing with this. Everyday life is hitting people. Yes, this morning I went to buy a gallon of milk for my daughter. I look at the price, $3.89. Of course, I'm still working at my day job and I'm still working as a senator, so $3.89 doesn't hit me the way that it hits some other people, but it is hitting people. It is really hitting people. I know the feeling of walking into a grocery store and seeing that the milk is $4 and thinking, oh man, I'm going to skip. I'll get milk from somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. And on top of everything else that we have to deal with in life, especially with COVID and the financial issues and, working and the homeschooling and everything else, we're having to deal with the stressors of fear, anxiety of the election when it shouldn't be a process of fear, and you shouldn't be led by fear, And
Correct.
I agree with you when you say that you do, because I said that when you at a point to when you try to do the self-care and you exercise and you do everything for yourself, definitely lean onto your family and getting your home situated first, and having that support system. So I'm glad that you kind of talked on that and leaning on your family. Now, a question as far as when you said that, or when people say, I'd rather not vote, period, in order to I don't want to pick the lesser of the two evils, so to speak. That's a comment that I've heard. And I don't want to vote because my vote doesn't matter, or, what do you say to those people who are in that mindset of not voting at all? I try
to be empathetic to people because I know many people are not educated on the issue that I'm educated on. But when people say my vote doesn't count, I think about the countless number of people who are between the ages of 14 to 17 who have been incarcerated through direct file. And that's something that happens through the state of Florida, allowing our state's attorneys to direct file juveniles into the adult prison system. And if somebody has a family member who's been incarcerated, that directly affects them. When they say they don't vote because it doesn't affect them, I think about the number of people who are currently incarcerated and who have died from coronavirus. When I went to the governor's office and I sent a letter on behalf of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus and asked that they release people who were over the age of 65, people who would be getting out soon, people who would not be a threat to society, and those people have died. They did not have a life sentence. And that was done by people who were in power, people who were elected, or people who chose not to vote, and those people still got elected. When people say that they don't want to vote, I think about the amount of money that the governor spent to stop people from voting here in the state of Florida. You don't have to go any further than the ballot that you have in your hands or as you get ready to vote to see that every amendment has language under it that tells you whether it has a fiscal issue attached to it. That's language that was instituted by the state legislature. We put that on the ballot We put that legislation in place in the legislature. I voted against it. Many of the Democrats voted against it. But so many, I call it strategic legislation against public participation. And when you have some people, and I'm not knocking anybody because everybody's not on the same level in terms of civics and political prowess. But when you have people who have not voted, who don't participate and say, well, it's the lesser of two evils, obviously those people are not looking at the courts. I've had lawyers who've come to me and said they would like to be appointed as a judge, and could I recommend them to the governor? And my response is, I can recommend you to the governor, but you're probably liberal, you're probably a Democrat. And I won't say liberal because liberal has gotten a bad name. Conservative has gotten a bad name during these times. So just because you may be an honest person who thinks fair and equality, you might want to become a judge, but the governor is not going to appoint a person to be a judge if that person does not think exactly the way that he thinks. And that is problematic for us because we no longer have a system of fairness and impartiality, a system of equity. When you say that Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to be a political, he called it a political asset. When you use judges as political assets, it's problematic. But when people do not vote, and I can tell anybody, I'm elected, trust me, I do not spend my time when I'm knocking on doors at the doors of people who do not vote. I'm even to a point in my life where I've got some people, that one person in particular, who complains to me about every single thing from the school district to his taxes, but this person is not even registered to vote. And I've stopped answering my phone because I cannot take it. I'm not going to. I've got family members. I've got a cousin who I've literally told, do not, and I hate to be this way because this is not how I am, but I've told him because so much is on the line, so much is at stake, do not speak to me because you do not vote. You say it's not going to change, but I'm in this system where I continue to watch bad things happen, and 10% of the population votes. And when you talk about minority communities, when you talk about Black people, and we say things to, let's say, Councilman Lawson, when are we going to have a skate park in our community? When are you going to fight for us to have this? And he wants to fight for it. But the fact of the matter is, there's not enough votes to say this is what you deserve. And this is problematic because we see it. I'm feeling it every day. When minimum wage is at a certain amount and we fought until I had to have minimum wage raised, and people say, well,